good morning, and welcome. Welcome, magnificent beings of light here in embodiment. Thank you so much for being here. It is wonderful to be here. So we're meditating today on the deep within, and I'm smiling to myself. Kashi and I did not compare notes, but the waters of life are very much present in her reflection and in this reflection as well. So we began with a teaching from the Psalms. We're inviting ourselves to connect with and directly feel that all creation proclaims the glory of God. And so for each one of us, that shape, that name, that form, that you is part of this proclamation of divine energy, of divine life. And to allow ourselves to feel directly that each of us is partaking, we're participating, we're expressing, we're co-creating with those waters of life, with the waters of the deep that pour forth and that express in the realm of time and space. I also shared with you a beautiful observation from Saint Therese of Lisieux. So when she was 6 or 7, she went to the ocean, she saw the sea for the first time, and she said that in her soul, the sea helped her feel, the sea made visible divine power and divine greatness. And so I'm inviting each of us to connect with that divine power and that divine greatness. It's very palpable when we stand at the edge of the ocean. And it's the energy of prayer. It's the energy when we pray, when we close our eyes, when we meditate, when we let go of feeling bound by this particular shape that we're in right now, we directly touch that same vast, immeasurable, limitless energy of pure love, energy of pure life. And so that is named very beautifully in a teaching from Ramana, great 20th century teacher of oneness in India. And last week I shared Ramana went through an experience when he was about 16 years of age in which his separate individual self died, and it never came back. So his separateness just vanished. And for the rest of his time here, he was the vastness in this form, sharing the vastness in this form. And one of the things that he says shortly after that, he would go into sacred spaces. He would go into the temple and he would stand. And he said that more often I would not pray at all, and here's the phrase, but silently allow the deep within to flow on and into the deep beyond. And so for each of us, I'm inviting us directly to feel, to close our eyes and to feel there is a deep within us, within each of us. It's the vastness of our own awareness. And there is also a deep beyond us, beyond the seeming separateness, beyond the beginning of this human life, beyond the ending of this human life. There is a deep beyond. And it's one deep. There's only the one. And so if you like to have an image for this, visualize that you are a bowl of light. You are a bowl of pure life energy. And that container of pure life energy, that bowl of light, is present at a seashore. And as you are comfortable, allow that bowl of light, that bowl of pure life energy, to be immersed in the ocean. And see if you can notice the deep within is absolutely one and the same with the deep beyond. The deep beyond is one and the same as the deep within. And see if you can notice as well that this is the energy of the absolute. This is the energy of the one. This is the energy of the self. This is the energy of creation before name and form, before the world becomes visible. And this vast, pure, expansive awareness, this lifeness, this energy of creativity and love, is our true nature. Always present, always available, always pervading us and pervading all of existence. And so the recognition that Ramana lived, which we all are invited to live right in the midst of daily life, is that the vastness of the deep beyond is also able to perceive through the container, through the bowl of the waters of life, and to express through a seeming individual. And so for each of us, this is what we are invited to do. It is what we are invited to be, just the vastness of the waters of life, just pure awareness, just the energy of optimism, only the energy of harmony, only the energy of cooperativeness, only the energy of allowing that measureless, infinite bliss of beingness to reach out a helping hand through the human hands of each of us, non-separately, knowing that it is the non-separateness that makes it possible to reach out those human hands, non-selfishly, knowing that when we present ourselves willingly and joyfully, with good humor, with mirth, with celebration, with festivity, with connectedness, with gladness, the divine is able to create through us new lives, new horizons, new communities, new ways of living and breathing and singing and being right in the midst of our daily lives, right in the midst of our daily world. And so if you like, I invite you to keep your eyes closed and to listen as the vastness, to listen as the deep beyond, allowing itself to hear through the deep within. I'm blinking my eyes open to share a couple of scriptures which are also pointing towards this same reality. And so the Psalms say, "Deep calls to deep in the roar of your waterfalls. All your waves and breakers have swept over me." And that's that same recognition that is expressed by Ramana. It's that same waters of life that we are each invited to connect with, that we are each invited to feel. Letting go of the barrier between the seeming separate individual human life and the deep waters of life that call to the deep within each of us. So allowing ourselves to be overswept, to allow ourselves to be melted into the deep waters of life. And then inviting those deep waters of life in our own voice, in our own accent, in our own relationships, in our own families, our own friendships, our own neighborhoods, our own communities, our own workplaces, our own cities, our own nations across the globe, allowing the deep to simply express through us whatever is highest and best, whatever is beautiful and optimistic and harmonious and cooperative, whatever is nurturing, whatever is nourishing. This deep with which we are connecting, and again, I invite you to listen with your eyes closed and to directly feel the deep beyond and the way that it is one and the same with the deep within, is also named in Genesis, in the opening of the Hebrew Bible. Now the earth was formless and empty. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And so the surface of the deep, that is the waters of the deep, that is the waters of life, that is the energy of pure potentiality, the energy of pure creativity, the energy of pure life, before it takes shape, before it pours itself into visible expression in the realm of time and space. And so guess what? This is where we're invited to live. We're invited to live before the arising of separateness. We're invited to live as the vastness of that pure creative energy. We are each of us invited to live with that pure awareness. And so I'm going to give you another threshold moment. This moment in Genesis, it's a threshold moment. It's the moment before the energy of pure potentiality pours itself into shape and takes name, takes form. Before the infinite pours itself into space, before the eternal pours itself into time, we're invited to live right there at that threshold, right there. And all potentiality, all divine power, all divine greatness is right there. And when we live there, there's non-separateness. And so what Ramana calls the frisky ego does not have a chance of arising. And so I'm inviting us to have a sense of humor about this, but just be aware, where in me, where in my life does the frisky ego like to arise? And how can I take a step back from that and live at this threshold moment? Live in the waters of the deep. Live in the vastness of the great beyond before all of this seeming separateness arises. And if we can live there before the arising of the frisky ego, you know, that frisky, adorable ego, then we live in freedom. And we actually sort of short circuit or like bypass the old energy patterns that otherwise we and our families and the collective can get caught up into and can then unintentionally energize and can believe to be real. And so living at this moment of pure potentiality, living in the vastness of the waters and the deep, is living in freedom. It's living in pure awareness. It's living in grace. It's living in the energy of blessing. Whatever your word for it be, it's living in the energy of divine power and greatness, to use the phrasing of Saint Therese of Lisieux. So another threshold moment where you can just capture that pure freshness is that moment, so I'm inviting you to feel that moment when you have been deeply sleeping and you blink your eyes open and it's before human awareness comes rushing in. So there's just that moment between deep sleep and normal waking human consciousness. There's no story. There's no, oh my God, I've got to do 117,000 impossible things before breakfast. There's none of that. There's none of the stories about all of the pain that humans carry. All of that, it's not present. We haven't yet entered into it. So it's that threshold moment between deep sleep and awaking. And so you can feel it. There's no labels. There's no commentary. There's no judgment. There's no limitation. There's no separateness. There's just pure awareness looking out through your eyes. So now imagine it is possible moment to moment to live that awareness. And when we live that awareness, it's almost like we come from another planet. And we're present in every human interaction as if we're seeing a human for the first time. And if we really encounter every human as if we're seeing a human for the first time, again, all those old energy patterns melt away. They don't exist. They're not present. They're not in our energy fields. They can't activate. And so we really are freshness of creation day. That's what each of us is invited to do, always, to be always. And you all know, and so I'm just inviting you to think of a couple of moments where you have seen humans just being spontaneously helpful, spontaneously kind, spontaneously optimistic, spontaneously cooperative. Hold on to those moments. Hold on to them, nurture them, cultivate them, celebrate them, and they will increase in your daily lived reality. And they are so beautiful because they just make visible our true nature. And so I happened last night, it was at about like 7:15, I walked out of my door and this was happening in the street outside where I live. So there were like 8 to 10 3-year-olds to 7-year-olds, and they were all learning to ride bicycles. So some of the bicycles were 3-wheel, some of them were 2-wheel. They were all trading bicycles. So they were riding in circles and then they would swap. And the parents were all there, but every parent was helping every child. And it was just like, this is heaven. Right here, like right on my street, in front of my house. Like that spontaneous, everyone treating every child as their own, and the children cooperatively swapping and trading. And then I love this beautiful 3-year-old boy. He was learning that he could make himself move forward with his own motive power, and his brain, you could see his brain like beginning to get this. So he would like move his legs and he would be like, I'm going forward. And then he would forget and he would move his legs and he would be like, I'm going backward. And so this too, and it's all learning. It's all learning. So when you feel like you're like, I've got this, I'm riding my 3-wheel bike, I'm moving forward. The choices that I make, the actions that I take, they help me and others move forward. Sometimes we have that feeling, and then sometimes our brain is sort of like, wait, I'm moving backward. I'm unintentionally moving backward, and I don't quite understand. The divine aspect of ourselves always loves us just as much when we are learning by moving backwards as when we are living by moving forwards. It's all learning. And so for every one of us, so a shortcut to remembering this is just to ask yourself, how much kindness and how much understanding am I living? Right in the midst of my daily life, how much kindness and how much understanding am I living? And so to bring kindness and understanding when we are the 3-year-old merrily bicycling forward, but to also bring kindness and understanding when we are the 3-year-old confusedly biking backward. It's the same process of learning. All of it is the same process of learning. And so to be equally delighted, and if possible, equally grateful, it's fine to express to the divine grace, I really love moving forward. But if we find ourselves bicycling backwards, to keep that sense of humor and just remember this is part of the process of learning. And so when we have that awareness for the 3-year-old, but we also have that awareness for ourselves, then we will have it when our brother says something unintentionally awkward, or when our workmate unintentionally does something confusing or ill-considered or painful, or when someone else that we wish had chosen to speak in a different way speaks in a way that unintentionally causes harm or hurt. We're able to see it's that same creative energy, it's that same life force, it's that same power that we all participate in. And I'm learning. He's learning, she's learning, they're learning, we're all learning. So to have that kind of open-hearted forgiveness and steadiness and kindness and joy and celebration, and choosing optimism, choosing to be as cooperative with the highest and the best as we possibly can from moment to moment. So I have 2 more stories which make really visible that from the soul perspective, this is much less about humanly, do I manage to get what I want? And it's much more about how much spontaneously, right in the midst of whatever else is going on, can I manage to be as kind and selfless and understanding as possible. And so the first is a story from a person who traveled beyond the body and was given the blessing of a life review. So seeing sort of like instantaneously with sequence and simultaneity, like that, all the significant moments of their life. In this story, it is so moving to notice that from the perspective of the soul, the most important achievement in this person's life was something they had no conscious memory of having even done. So they were a little kid and they were driving with their family. They stopped at a rest stop to get water, and the family sent the little kid carrying a bucket down to the river to get water. So child walks down to the river, gets water, carries the water back, and on the way back to rejoining the family, sees a tree and thinks, oh, that tree looks thirsty. Shares the waters of life with the tree, forgets all about it, never tells a soul about it, does not remember having done this, brings the rest of the water to the family. That act of selflessness, that act of kindness, that act of without thinking about it, without telling anyone about it, without keeping track of it, without remembering it, just sharing the waters of life. That was the lesson that was most important for that soul. That was what was created, that was most important to create in that lifetime. Sort of takes the outside pressure off, doesn't it? If we just remember, this is really about selfless kindness and understanding. Natural, effortless, spontaneous, allowing the waters of life to share through each of us in the midst of our daily lives. And this other story, let's see if I can talk about this one without crying. So this is, again, a story of a person who left the body, and basically the divine helped this person. This person was in a hospital, say that it's on a Monday, and was awaiting surgery, say that the surgery was on a Friday. So on the Monday, the divine helped this person travel to the operating theater and said, there does not need to be any fear, but you will not be returning to your body after this surgery. And the person was so at peace being with the divine. There was no fear, there was no struggle, there was no worry, there was no alarm. There was just like, oh, I'll be with the divine. I'm with the divine right now. There is only absolute peace. And so then let's say on a Tuesday, this person sits down and is drafting a letter to his wife. And he's drafting the letter to his wife and bursts into tears. Another example of the waters of life spontaneously sharing through him. And the divine revisits this person and says, I thought you would be happy to be with me. And the person says, I want nothing more than to be with you. It's only that my wife and I are raising our nephew, and he's going through a tough phase right now, and I worry that my wife will have a hard time with him. And I feel if my presence were there in his life, that it would have a steadying effect on him. That's the only reason why I'm crying. I want to be with you more than anything in the world. And the divine said to this person, because you are asking for another, because you are not asking on behalf of yourself, you will live to see your nephew a man. And so for each of us, these stories illustrate that what we are invited to do is not wait until we leave the body, But allow ourselves right now, as the yogis do, as Ramana did, as Saint Therese of Lisieux did, allow ourselves right now to travel beyond the bounds of separate individual awareness, to connect with the waters of life, to connect with the vastness of the deep, and to allow the divine to show us right now. And I will give us about 3 minutes for this, and I invite you to return to this meditation. If you are doing this meditation without tears streaming down your face, return to this meditation until tears stream down your face. But just ask the divine, what does my soul want me to know? What does the divine want me to know about ways in which I have been living kindness and understanding? And what does the divine want me to know about ways in which I am invited to expand the kindness and understanding I am living? So, about 3 words in closing, 3 statements. Divine support, divine love, divine caring and affection are with each of us always. Allow yourself to feel that and to trust in that. And love is a bridge. Love is a bridge that helps us transcend the illusion of separateness. So love is a bridge that helps us live as the absolute that helps us be absolute peace here in human form. Unconditional love is a bridge that helps the waters of the deep flow with potency and purity and joy and good humor through each of us and through all of life. Thank God, and God bless us all.